on to the MLB playoffs.
Academic conflict. I'd say he's like failing class. He just had a presentation he had to go to.
So
And going off of
we're just
that,
doing a little bit of a test run. We're going to try to actually audio record this one because Will was not able to be in attendance due to academic conflict. I'd say he's like failing class. He just had a presentation he had to go to, and going off of that, just felt like now's the time. Now's the time to record because we're in that time of the year, the best time of the year, October. You have footballs in full swing, college football's in full swing. The NBA is getting back in the preseason. The NHL started yesterday. We'll get into that a little bit. No, Will's not here to reel me in and force me to talk about sports people care about, so you're going to hear some NHL news today. And then, of course, the MLB playoffs, which is where we'll begin. We just got out of the wild card games. Before that, we should probably go into the NL first. The NL ended up having double tiebreakers to get into the wild card game. And I want to start, obviously, as a Cardinals fan, with, as of right now, the biggest choke job in the entire MLB playoffs, which is the Chicago Cubs. About a week ago, they held the best record in the National League, and as of today, they are no longer in MLB playoffs. They didn't even get a playoff series win, and it's basically their own fault. They had two home games. They had the home field advantage against the Brewers. They lost that game. The Brewers won the NL Central, so the Cubs were forced to play in wildcard game. They didn't have to go anywhere because they had home field again. And the Rockies came in, and that game, if there was a game more beautiful than that game, I haven't seen it yet. That was peak NL baseball. You had the starting pitcher, you had Kyle Freeland dealing. John Lester on the opposite side dealing. Nobody could get any hits. The Rockies broke through early. In the first inning, they had Arenado end up getting a sac fly to drive in Blackman. It should have been 2-0 going off of that because Blackman got on, and then DJ LeMahieu hit a ball into the gap, which ended up rolling. It probably would have been a triple, but Wrigley Field's infamous Ivy ate the ball, causing a ground rule double. I thought Blackman maybe should have been awarded home because the time the ball went into the Ivy, Blackman had already secured second base. I think going by the law of the rule, once you secure a bag, it's 2 bases from that. But you have second and third. Nolan Arenado hits a pop fly, gets Blackman in. They don't drive LeMahieu in, and then we move on for about 8 innings of just scoreless, well-played baseball. The Cubs, ton of chances, kept blowing it. They blew a couple calls that went their way. There was a catcher interference, which was a mental mistake. There was Don, the Colorado Rockies right fielder, had a key error. Well, neither came back to bite the Rockies. They seemed like no matter what they did to shoot themselves in the foot, they were just going to continue limping on into the next round. But then everyone's favorite NL MVP runner-up, Javi Baez, in the 8th inning, knocks in the tying run, and then we get into a bullpen game. A bullpen game is peak managerial strategy once you get into the extra innings. The Rockies bullpen, after Freeland came out, was great. Octavino was very good, besides the Javier Baez single and the Anthony Rizzo single that came before that. But Joe Madden made a move which he kind of got some flack later in the game because he took Anthony Rizzo out after he got a single in the 8th inning for Gore, who is their elite pinch runner. The dude cannot hit. The dude can't hit to save his life. He has 1 career base hit in his MLB career, but he's super fast and he's a great base runner. So they had him steal second, so when Baez got his single, guaranteed run. So I thought that was a great move at the time because you have to play like we have to win this game now. So I thought it was a great move. But as the game went on, it would have been nice to have Anthony Rizzo and not Gore hitting in the 3 spot in the lineup. But they wouldn't be in that situation if it wasn't for the move in the first place. And the reason the Cubs were not successful in that game basically came down to they just didn't have the pitching that they had the year they went to the World Series. Lester has been very good. He's not the ace he was from back then. He had some rough patches, but he was very good this year. Kyle Hendricks has reverted to like a 3 starter. He came in the game. Cole Hamels is the only reason they were able to kind of run away with the NL Central for a little bit, even though they didn't end up losing it. But the only reason they were able to put any separation between themselves and the Brewers is because of how well Cole Hamels pitched down the stretch. Ever since they got him from the Rangers, he was like a new man. You could have even just you could have even inferred that he was dogging it on the Rangers, and when he finally got to a team he wanted to play for the Cubs, he turned it on, and he was that ace everyone remembers from 10 years ago. I know everyone in Philadelphia remembers the ace he was 10 years ago in 2018, and you heard it about 10 times on the broadcast after he came in. But that was the great part about National League Baseball. Once he came in, his spot came up in the lineup. The Cubs had a chance to get a run, and what they did was they pinch hit for him, got him out of the game. I think that ended up working very much in the Rockies' favor because I forget who pinch hit for him, but they ended up grounding out. So the Rockies end up finally, their backup catcher gets a hit in the 13th, and that's the end of that. Rockies move on. Right now, they are currently losing to the Milwaukee Brewers. Christian Yelich hit a home run, 2-0 Brewers. That's going to be a series with a lot of hitting. There's not a lot of big-name pitchers going back and forth. And that kind of brings me into one of my points I want to talk about was this recent infatuation with bullpen games. The Brewers chose to go with bullpen game in Game 1, and it's not something that I love. I understand bullpens are becoming much more important in this day and age. Teams are relying. You need an elite bullpen to get through the playoffs. We saw the Yankees basically come into the playoffs last year with 4 mediocre starters and an elite bullpen, and they got within a game of the World Series. The Astros had some key performances from their bullpen that helped them reach the World Series and win it. The Dodgers obviously have Kenley Jansen, who's an elite closer, who they can count on. So bullpens are very important, but it's just so hard when you committed to throwing 5 different pitchers. You're counting on each one of them to give you their ace stuff. And right now it's working for the Brewers, but last night it did not work for the A's. They did 2 or 3 of the pitchers did great. They shut the door on the Yankees, but the first one, and that basically set the tone for the game when Aaron Judge hit that home run at the top of the second, or bottom of the first. Aaron Judge hit a 2-run home run to open the scoring. The Hike place went bonkers, and after that point, it was the Yankees' game to lose. The A's just didn't have an answer, and many people thought they were going to start Mark Fiers Game 1. I'm more of a you use the ace that got you there, like the Yankees did with Severino. You use your ace, and if you're going to lose with your best player on the mound. You don't want to second guess yourself, get too cute with it. Take your ace, put him on the mound. He has to pitch like the ace. That's the reason you call him your ace. It's because he's your best pitcher, and you can count on him to get out. And the Yankees were rewarded with 4 strong innings from Severino. A's struggled. A couple of their pitchers struggled. The Yankees did what the Yankees do, hit home runs, and they're on the next round with the biggest series coming up next, Yankees-Red Sox, something we have not seen since 2004 in the postseason, and that was pre-Twitter, so it's going to be an interesting time on social media for the next couple of weeks, or next week, see how that goes. As we know, 2 of the most level-headed, respectful fan bases on all of the internet playing against each other. I mean, it's going to be just, it's basically utopia. It's the perfect society, is having Yankees and Red Sox fans on Twitter playing each other in the postseason. It will be a master class in how to treat your fellow man. But going off that, this is a weird one because the Yankees were the 3rd best team in baseball. Red Sox are the best team in baseball. They're matching up in the 2nd round of the playoffs. Game 1, Chris Sale, J. Happ. Many people want him going in the wildcard game. What Peacock probably could have done what Severino did with 8 runs of support, but he's been very good for the Yankees. He's been a great pickup. Something they desperately needed was pitching depth. So even if he was just adequate, he would have been fine. Like Lance Lynn was a very adequate pitcher who did what he had to do to get the Yankees to 100 wins. But J. Happ went above and beyond, was borderline their ace through the end of the year. So they have him going, and the Red Sox, of course, have the banged-up Chris Sale. Says he's healthy, says he's ready to go. I'd be a little worried. Basically, the Red Sox fans should be worried for two reasons. They're starting pitching. All of them are head cases in the playoffs. They all have terrible numbers in the playoffs. None of them have won. They don't have a single starting pitcher who's won a playoff game. That worries me. Two is their bullpen has just not been good. It hasn't been good all year, but when you hit as well as the Red Sox do, it basically doesn't matter. But they just don't have any bullpen. And if their starters struggle, I don't think they have the guys necessary to hold teams. They may have enough talent, just talent-wise, to get past the Yankees. But I think once it starts to take a toll on the starters, as you go farther into the postseason, it's more innings for each starter, especially someone like Sale, who has been injured this year and at times has struggled with injuries. In past seasons, he struggled with fatigue late in the year. So I'd be worried about that going forward. I'm not going to say I think the Yankees are going to win because the Red Sox are by far the most talented team in baseball. I think the Yankees have a much better chance than what the numbers would say. Because I think a lot of people are giving the Yankees a very fair shake, even maybe too much of a shake in the series, based on how well they hit. Because the Yankees, in their own right, I'm talking about how the Red Sox starting pitchers just don't do well in the playoffs. At least those guys have some regular season elite talent. Chris Sale, obviously, one of the better pitchers in the American League. He's great in the regular season. David Price had a dominating second half. Then you have Rick Porcello, who's former Cy Young winner, whether deserved or undeserved. That's up to you. He is a former Cy Young Award winner and a 17-game winner. So those are three guys who you should be confident in. If we're talking like just looking at their numbers, not their past postseason experience, those are three guys I'd be very comfortable in, numbers-wise, starting for a playoff series. The Yankees, they have J-Happ, and they haven't named their Game 2 starter. They haven't named their Game 3 starter. You have to think Tanaka will work his way into one of those two games. Not a huge fan of Tanaka, but basically him, maybe Lance Lynn. Well, what the Yankees will probably do, you have Happ go Game 1, Tanaka go Game 2. I would bring Severino back Game 3 if they're on the brink of elimination or short rest, because you need your ace to come out. I know he hasn't been good. He's turned around a little bit, but Severino hasn't been good in the second half. But if I'm going to lose to the Red Sox in 3 games, I'm not going to do it without putting Severino on the mound. It's not something I'm going to do. I'd have the bullpen. I just have guys throwing in the first inning just to have them ready in case it all goes just south very quickly. But I would 100% start Severino Game 3. But I don't think this is going to be a sweep for either team. I think the Red Sox will probably win Game 1 if Chris Sale is who Chris Sale is. So it's kind of weird to preface it. But if Chris Sale is able to continue success, I don't see the Yankees getting a lot of hits off of him. I don't see them going into Fenway Game 1 sending a message. I think that's a loss. David Price, I'm counting that as basically an automatic win. He is probably the worst playoff pitcher basically ever, and he is owned by the Yankees. I don't care if that the game's at Fenway. I think the Yankees will win Game 2, back to the Bronx, probably have Severino. Yankees are a team where maybe Aaron Boone gets a little cute and does a bullpen game just to get Severino a day of rest if it's 1-1 at that point, because they have the arms where they can have guys go 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, just have elite arms the whole game, and it could potentially work. I think if I had to pick a team to throw a bullpen game, it would be the Yankees. You have Conley, Chapman, Robertson, Betances. They all go 2 innings. There's 8 innings right there. And that's not even talking about some of the other guys they have who can potentially, you throw like a starter in there for the last inning. You could do something like that. But I think these teams are pretty close talent-wise. I do think the Red Sox are going to have the advantage. I think they are going to win. In the end, it's going to be a very tough series. I think Betts and JD Martinez are 2 of the top 5 players in the American League, depending on what metrics you want to look at and value. They're just so much better than, Judge has looked great. He had a great game last night. He looks like he's back to full health, but Stanton has not been nearly as good as JD Martinez. Yankees relying on a lot of young guys. I don't like their infield defensively. Luke Voigt's been hitting very well. Former Cardinal Luke Voigt's been hitting very well, but Defensively at first base, I'm not a huge fan of him. Andahar really worries me at third base. Middle of the infield with Didi and Glaber's pretty good, but the Yankees also finished dead last and turning double plays, so they can't be that good. But I do think the Red Sox will pull out that series. Moving on to some of the other series, you have Indians-Astros. Everyone knows who's listened to the show that I've championed the Indians going to the World Series based on the fact they just haven't had to try this year. Game 1 will basically tell me if I'm right or wrong. I don't think they can lose Game 1 and then I don't think they can win Game 1 and then just implode. I think they're just a veteran team who's been here before. They've been within a hit of winning the World Series before, for the most part, on this roster. They're minus Carlos Santana. But I think that they will probably win that in 4, which will be a surprise. I know the Astros turned it around and ended up being the second best team in baseball, but I really do like the Indians. There's just so much talent up and down the roster with Lindor, Ramirez. You have Bauer on the mound. One of my favorites, you have Kluber. And you have their bullpen, which is hit or miss. They struggled. They have Andrew Miller, who we know if he's on, how good he can be. He was borderline the World Series MVP that year. But I got the Indians in that one. Brewers, Rockies. I like the Rockies. They're losing right now. But I'm kind of in debt to them because they knocked the Cubs out of the playoffs at Wrigley. So I do like the Rockies. I mean, that game, that's another series that's wildcard team, number 1 seed in the division. That's really close. Really close. So I can see that one going 5. I'm going to go with the Rockies. It's going to be a lot of hits. It's going to be a lot of fun. You have Braves, Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are just too talented. I do like Albius. I do like Acuna on the Braves, the 2 young guys. Freddie Freeman's really good. Marquez had a great year. But I think the Dodgers have too much pitching. If Jansen's on, they got an elite closer. And you have Machado, Dozier added to a roster that made the World Series last year. I think that one will go for Dodgers win that one. So that's baseball. That brought us through the first 20 minutes. Now, sorry about that. Now we can move on, get to the big show, talk about the NHL. I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. We'll just do predictions, and I can talk about stuff as I go through the teams. We'll start in the Metro, because that pertains to the Northeast teams that we all know and love. For playoff teams, I got Penguins, Blue Jackets, Flyers, Devils, Caps. I have the Caps being the last team in. I'm looking kind of dumb after Game 1. They beat the Bruins 7-0 last night, an absolute drubbing. But I was thinking there's going to be much more of a Stanley Cup hangover from that team, considering how much they drank during the parade. But all kidding aside, they just seem like that team that really needed to get their cup, and now they don't care. But they are seemingly as motivated as they were last year, so watch out for the Caps. I decided to put the Devils in the playoffs, something I usually don't do, but talent-wise, I mean, you have Taylor Hall, the returning MVP. Nico Hischier is your number 1 center, going to take a step forward and probably put up 60 points, 60 to 70 points. You have Kyle Palmieri and Marcus Johansson. If they both stay healthy the whole year, that's 4 very good skaters. On top of that, they have very fast role players. They play a good system. You Sami Vatanen, their number 1 defenseman, is going to be there the whole year this time. They traded for him halfway through last year. And if they can just get the goaltending figured out, Corey Schneider is not going to start the year with them. They're going to have to go with Kincaid and Eddie Lack to begin the year. But I would think that I do think Kincaid's more than capable of holding down the fort for 2 to 3 weeks. But if it goes anywhere more than them, that's when you start to get a little bit worried when Eddie Lack's making 3 or 4 starts, 4 or 5 starts. That's when you start to get in a little bit of trouble. So I'd like the Devils there. The Flyers have basically everything you'd want. They have established talent. Drew, Voracek, Wayne Simmons. Yeah, they have young players. You have Gostisbehere, Nolan Patrick, Travis Konechny. Their roster's all filled of just so much talent. They just do not have a goalie. Brian Elliott is bad. They're not going to win with Brian Elliott. But I think despite Elliott, they just have enough talent to get through the season, get into the playoffs again. And next year, even potentially this year, if Brian Elliott gets hurt, they are just able to call up Carter Hart, who is maybe the most decorated goalie of all time coming out of the Canadian junior system. You have Carter Hart potentially being an elite goaltender. We'll see how he does in his first season of professional hockey, but if he's able to continue success at the level of success he's been attaining, he could very well step in and be a top 10 goalie in the NHL, and that would basically make the Flyers a colossus. They would have an elite player at basically every position, and that would make them probably the favorites to win the Metro next year. And even without, or I do think they're a playoff team. Blue Jackets, people are wary on the Blue Jackets. They're a team that is known to ride their runs. Every year they seemingly have a run where they win 8 games in a row or 10 games in a row, and they play 500 the rest of the way, and that gets them to the playoffs. I just think they're talented. Artemi Panarin's one of those elite players. He's someone who's got a little Taylor Hall in him where he can take over games, and he's got the speed and the stick handling ability, playmaking ability, vision. He's got basically a little bit of everything. So if you're looking for a dark horse MVP candidate with Panarin, the problem is they might trade him because Artemi Panarin has refused to sign last summer to an extension. He didn't refuse. He isn't saying I'm going to leave. He said he didn't want to deal with his future right now when he has a whole year to consider it. And he's not sure if he wants to live for 7 more years in Columbus, Ohio, which I'm not going to blame him. Not exactly a sprawling metropolis of a city when you can potentially make $9 million to playing in New York or LA, somewhere in Florida, Tampa Bay. You basically get paid wherever you want in a legit metropolitan city. So if they trade him, they have so much talent on their team. They have Seth Jones and Roinski. On defense, they're just 2 studs. If the Devils just have one of them, the Devils would be just perfect, but Blue Jackets have both of them. They're both elite. Pierre-Luc Dubois, when their young center, who's making a lot of strides. He was very good last year. They're just a good team. And you have Bobrovsky, who's been a perennial Vezina Award candidate. So they have a rock-solid goaltender. And then I have the Penguins winning the Metro. They're just talented. If no one gets hurt, there's no reason why they shouldn't win. They got Crosby, Gino, Bill Kessel, Chris Letang, Matt Murray's a very good goaltender, and they're just structured as a winning organization. They're like an elite program. You can just count on them to win the games they have to win to get into the playoffs. So I'll just run through some other teams to watch. You have the Maple Leafs, who are going to be very exciting. They might have the best power play in all of hockey right now. They have Morgan Rielly, elite puck-moving defenseman, John Tavares, top 5 center, Austin Matthews, eventual top 5 center, Mitch Marner. Many compare him to Patrick Kane. He's only 22. Or maybe William Nylander's also on power play. I don't know. But those 4 guys are 4 elite guys, and they're going to put up a lot of points. They won last night against the Canadiens. Austin Matthews had a couple of goals, as he always does on opening night. Then you have John Tavares hitting his first goal as a Maple Leaf after spurning the New York Islanders this summer in free agency. So the Maple Leafs are going to be a very exciting team to watch. They have a couple elite teams to worry about in the Lightning and the Panthers and the Bruins, all taking steps. But I do think the Maple Leafs are going to be one of those elite teams this year. The Sharks as well. Best defensive core in the NHL. Yes, sir. The Predators usually hold that title because they have 4 elite defensemen, but right now the Sharks have Brent Burns, who's possibly the best shooting defenseman in the NHL. He always leads the league in shots taken, getting shots to the net. He's elite at it. He's big. He can skate. Sees the ice around him. And him alone makes the defensive core great because Brent Burns is that good. And then they added Erik Karlsson, the best offensive defenseman of this generation. They have him playing on the second line with Marc-Edouard Vlasic, one of the best shutdown defensemen of the past 5 years. On top of that, they have a very good forward core with Logan Couture and Evander Kane, 2 guys in their prime who are prime point getters. They're locked to win that division because it's so bad. They're just going to run through that. They could be looking for a team that set a record for points. Look for the Sharks. I think they lost last night to the Ducks. Now I'm thinking about it. But if Martin Jones just figures out how to stop a puck, they are going to be so hard to beat this year because every pair they roll out, even their third pair, is Justin Braun, who's a very good defenseman. every pair they roll out just has studs. They're going to be able to stop every team's top line, and then once the other team's a weaker line, they have a defensive pair who would run over that line. They're going to be tough to stop. And you have the Winnipeg Jets, the darlings last year's playoff. They play in a very small market, Winnipeg. They have a great fan base who packs the house for every playoff game. Patrick Laine, potentially the next Alex Ovechkin when it comes to scoring goals. Mark Scheifele, top 10 center in the NHL. A great all-around hockey team, the Winnipeg Jets. Connor Hellebuck, American goalie, got paid in the offseason because he had a great year last year. Led All-American goalies in wins. I think they run away with the Central. They just have too much talent. And teams I think are going to underachieve. I have the Bruins. I still think they're very deep. They have that one line. They have Bergeron, Pastrnak, Marchand, which, to be fair, very good line. And then they have Jake DeBrusk. I don't trust Danton Heinen. I think he'll have a sophomore slump. I don't really trust any of their depth forwards. And they rely way too much on Zdeno Chara on defense. I mean, McAvoy's great and all, but Chara gets way too many minutes for like a 42-year-old with like no knees. He's just too slow to play. McAvoy's good, though. I like Carlo. Rook's good. And then I don't trust Rask. I never have. The numbers have proven me wrong basically every year that Rask is a good goalie, but just when I watch him, he's still that head case that you can't trust him. You really can't. So I don't trust the Bruins. I think they're talented, but I think they're going to be one of the first teams to miss the playoffs. Like one of the first teams out, like probably the 9 seed in the East. And I think the Golden Knights, everyone's favorite team from last season, everyone had a career year last year. Everyone, Fleury had a career year. William Karlsson had a career year. Jonathan Marchessault continued his ascent to elite status. But to ask them all to do it again is tough. I don't know if I trust William Karlsson to score 40 goals again. I don't know if I trust Fleury to handle the starting job, even though he only did for half the season. I don't trust him to show up for long portions of the season. I don't trust they can have 4 backup goalies all come in and win games for them again. It's just an anomaly. I can't trust any of that. So I think the Knights are another team that's going to just miss. They do have some talent working around. They have Max Pacioretty now, who I do like. He helps bring some like established talent, but not a huge fan of the Golden Knights. Going off of that, before we get into the NFL, there's one thing I do want to talk about in the NHL, something that actually happened. Tom Wilson, a player on the Capitals. Basically, I'm going to equate this to football for people who don't know. Tom Wilson is basically the NHL's version of Vontaze Perfect, except Wilson hasn't played for as long as Perfect has, but Wilson has pretty much the same amount, has done the same amount of damage during his time. In the past, I think it was 120 games. He's been suspended 4 times, and this last hit was in the preseason, which you hate to see someone get concussed in the preseason, but Tom Wilson launched himself into Oscar Sundqvist's head, concussed him, gave him this huge bruise, cut his face up, and the league decided they talked to Tom Wilson last year at the end of the season because he did get suspended during the playoffs. They talked to him in the offseason. They told him time to cut it out, time to stop actively setting out to injure people, time for you to grow up and just play hockey. And literally, maybe they played. It's like less than 10 games later, he goes out and he does something like this. They just threw the book at him, gave him 20 games. He is appealing, so he is on the Caps roster. I'm pretty sure he did get announced last night with the rest of the team before the game. But 20 games seems adequate for someone who has shown no sign of caring about his fellow players' safety. So I do agree with the fact that it was 20 games, and basically all I'm asking for out of this is that the next time Brad Marchand does something, slew foots, cross-check someone into the boards, I just want Brad Marchand to get the same treatment because he's had as many incidents as Tom Wilson, and the last one I think was his 6-scammer for Marcus Johansson. He concussed Marcus Johansson on the Devils, and that was 6 games, so he's basically a strike away from getting this 20-game thing. So hope the NHL stays consistent. Moving into the NFL this week, we do have a bunch of topics, but basically what I want to talk about is an upcoming game, which I am very excited for, is the Chiefs and the Jags. The top offense in the league versus the top defense in the league. If you don't count the Rams, we're basically a perfect team. but it's two completely different styles. And I did not get into our tweets because Will wasn't here, but my tweet was basically talking about how Patrick Mahomes, a combination of Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, John Elway. We need to pump the brakes for Patrick Mahomes. He was great the first 3 weeks. He was fine last week. He did show he could come back and win a game against the Broncos. But we have to stop acting like the Broncos are still this elite defense. They have a good pass rush. Their secondary's good, but I wouldn't describe it as one of the best in the league. I do think they're a top 10 defense, but Mahomes did do very well. He did pass that test. But the Jags are a whole different animal. The Jags are basically elite at every tier of their defense. Defensive line. You have Fowler Jr., Calais Campbell, studs. Linebackers. You have Church. Then you have secondary Ramsey. You have Booyah. You have Todd Gibson. You have all these players who are all elite at their position. And now they get this young quarterback, young gunslinger quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, who, to be fair, has a plethora of talent who I think would be a matchup problem for most other teams. But you have Travis Kelce, who will basically not count this game because the Jags are able to neutralize Gronk, who's, I think, a better player than Travis Kelce. So that shouldn't be a problem. They already game planned how to stop an elite tight end. Running back Kareem Hunt, the Jags haven't been extremely tested with elite running backs so far, but they do have a great defensive line who gets to the quarterback, doesn't give anyone a lot of time in the backfield. So I'm not too worried about Kareem Hunt. Then you have Tyreek Hill, who has decided to reverse the roles and start the trash talking against Jalen Ramsey. And this is the matchup I'm waiting to see. I'm a huge Jalen Ramsey fan, admittedly. So I'm on the Jaguar side. I'm a huge Jaguar supporter. As everyone knows, I picked them to win the Super Bowl this year. And after losing to the Titans, they did bounce back and they beat the Jets, but no surprise. In that one, this is going to be a huge test. And this is, as a big Ramsey fan, it's going to pain me to say, but this is going to be a hard matchup for him. Because he has in the past struggled against speedy, smaller wide receivers. Odell, I think, put up 100 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but I think he put up 100 yards week 1 when Ramsey was on him. You had Antonio Brown last year played very well against Ramsey, and Tyreek Hill is just, it's going to be hard for Ramsey to come up and press coverage someone like Tyreek Hill when the Chiefs have so many schemes where they motion Hill, move him around before the play snaps. It's going to be hard to stay in front of him. And even besides that, it's going to be hard to just keep track of him based on his speed. He is probably the fastest wide receiver in football besides John Ross, who's the fastest player ever in the combine, but he's not good at football, so we're not going to count him. But Tyreek Hill is the fastest player, fastest wide receiver. So that's going to be a tough matchup. But not to say Jalen Ramsey's slow. As far as cornerbacks go, he's one of the faster ones, and for his size, very fast for his size. That great length, he's strong. It's going to be interesting to see because Tyreek Hill went out and called him out for the game and said he is ready. He's asking Jalen Ramsey to come try to press him. And it's kind of funny because Ramsey's response was basically that Tyreek Hill's never been an all-pro at wide receiver. The only time he went to the Pro Bowl was as a return specialist, which I thought was a pretty good research comeback by Ramsey, who's always good for a quote. This game is going to be extremely exciting. And it's basically, I'm going to go with the Jags because I go with the Jags basically every week. I just trust the defense too much. And the Chiefs have a Swiss cheese defense. Sure, they stopped Casey Keenum last week, but you could throw the Texas Longhorns out there and they stopped Keenum. Keenum just sucks. He's a terrible quarterback. But they've been eaten alive the past couple weeks. They got eaten alive by the Steelers. So as long as Bortles, for the love of God, can just show up and just play league average football, get the ball to his fast receivers, get them in space, give them the ball. I don't know if Leonard Fournette's 100% for this game, but TJ Yeldon, if they just get their guys, get the offense moving, just get points on the board for the defense, that would be amazing. And I think if that's able to happen, I don't think there's any reason why the Jags should lose this game to the Chiefs. There's just no way. The other big game this week is between the Philadelphia Eagles, who are coming off a loss to the Tennessee Titans in overtime, and the Minnesota Vikings, who are coming off a loss on Thursday Night Football to the best team in football, the LA Rams. This is a big game for both teams. The Eagles have struggled mightily on defense. Their strengths from last season have not carried over. Their D-line's still been very good, so that strength carried over, but their O-line's was very bad last week. The Titans basically had free reign to hit Carson Wentz, which is surprising considering you think they'd want to protect the guy with one good leg, but no, Wentz was getting battered around last week by the Titans. Their secondary has been atrocious this season. They got torn apart by the Buccaneers, who turned out to be a bad team, which I've been saying. They got torn apart by the Buccaneers and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Last week, Marcus Mariota, coming off a week where he couldn't feel his throwing arm, a week after that injury, he comes out and he slices and dices through their secondary. And now they're facing Kirk Cousins, who is getting a lot of flack because the Vikings aren't very good, but has been putting up very good numbers with this offense. I don't think anyone on the Eagles secondary has the talent to keep up with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. And they have added.
I don't have a whole lot of faith in them.
It's a revenge game. It's a revenge game for the last NFC Championship game where the Eagles curb stomped the Vikings to get to the Super Bowl. They want the Eagles. They want to take the Eagles. They want to destroy the Eagles. And right now, as far as the Eagles' talent goes, I don't have a whole lot of faith in them playing against top teams because they've looked mediocre against the Colts. Last week, the Tennessee Titans, who are a good team, beat them. The Buccaneers, who are another mediocre team like the Colts, toasted them. I just don't know what to think right now. It's looking like there is a little bit of a hangover, and it's looking like Wentz is still working with his offense to try to get it going.
So it's going to be high scoring.
The loss of LeGarrette Blount is looking like it's a little bit more than people thought, considering he was such a vital weapon in the running game, and he provided just a great piece in their rotation of running backs, which they don't seemingly have right now. So it's going to be high scoring. It's in Philadelphia. I think Cousins is going to slice and dice the defense. But going the other way, looking at the pros for the Eagles, the Vikings O-line is really bad, and I think Fletcher Cox is going to dominate the line, which might take Dalvin Cook out of the game, which should, and they might be able to get to Kirk Cousins relatively easily, which should limit the pressure put on the Eagles secondary if Cousins doesn't have the time to develop plays downfield and he has to dump things off short slants, the receivers in front of him, and limit the amount of yards they're getting through the air. So I think if they're able to get to Cousins, it's going to be extremely close. I can see them winning, but if they're unable to get pressure on the quarterback, I see no reason why the Vikings can't blow the Eagles out. And to be completely honest, I just don't see a reason why the Vikings can't come out and blow the Eagles out if the Eagles cannot get their linebackers and their defensive linemen to Cousins relatively quickly. I just don't see why. So, going off that, the other thing people are talking about this week, as far as the NFL goes, is Le'Veon Bell's holdout. As he has said, he's going to come back after Week 7. I think that's their bye. He's going to come back when they play the Browns. And Earl Thomas, who was in contract talks but ended up getting hurt, and now he's basically just out of money because he broke his shin. He's just not going to get paid by anyone. And he flipped off the Seattle Seahawks sideline. So it has people talking a lot about who's in the right in the situation with the holdout. You have the players who obviously want their money. They want their guaranteed money because this game is just so hard on the body, and any hit could be that hit that ends your career. You want to know that you're taken care of. And you look on the other side, it's a salary cap league. So the teams only have so much money they can give to their players. So going off of that, I think in a way, as far as Le'Veon Bell goes, I think Earl Thomas, in all honesty, got screwed by the Seahawks, basically because they just wouldn't. They treated him very coldly for someone who was just a key member of the best Seahawk years in their organization's history. I think he got screwed because he went out. He didn't hold out. He went out and played, helped the Seahawks on the field, got 2 interceptions against the Cowboys this year. He might lead the league in interceptions, and he went out and broke his shin. Now he gets no money because this team wouldn't pay him and they wouldn't trade him. So it is what it is for Earl Thomas. But as far as Le'Veon Bell goes with this holdout situation, I think there is some truth on both sides, and I agree with what both sides are doing to an extent. I do understand Le'Veon Bell's side, and most people do feel for the players because they're the ones trying to make the money. They don't have the money. They're trying to get it from their owners and GMs. I do understand why Le'Veon Bell wants to get paid because he is the best running back when he's on the field. He does everything at an elite level. He is behind the line. He is one of the shiftiest. He is so patient behind his offensive line. He's great at finding holes. He's got the acceleration. On top of that, he's an elite pass catcher. He's potentially their third best receiving option when he's on the field as a running back. And right now, as we see in the Steelers' offense, is not the same without Le'Veon Bell on the field. So I understand why he wants his $17 million, his 10% of the cap, because he's so important to this team and to the team's success that he wants to get paid fair value for his work. But, on the other hand, if there's a more volatile position in football than running back, I don't know what it is. Teams win all the time without elite running backs. We said that earlier in the year. Running back it's not a needed position to be a good football team. You don't need to have Le'Veon Bell. You don't need to have 2012 Adrian Peterson. You need to have peak Marshawn Lynch. You don't need Todd Gurley even though the Rams are the best team. Todd Gurley is having a great year. They don't need Todd Gurley because their offensive scheme, their offensive line, their defense, and their defense around him is so good that it doesn't matter. You just need someone who's good at running back. I don't think anyone can tell me if they didn't have Todd Gurley and they had Joe Mixon instead, they had a rookie, someone on a rookie deal, that the Rams would be so much worse because they have Joe Mixon in the backfield, not Todd Gurley. They might not be 4-0, they might be 3-1, but in the end, they're going to win their division and be a playoff team, no matter who's at running back. So I understand where the Steelers are not wanting to give 10% of the cap for like 3 or 4 years to an aging, bit of the end of the road running back, even though he's the best running back in football. I understand because they think if they can just get this team going around James Conner, who's on he's much cheaper, he's more controllable. He's not the same going to Le'Veon Bell's character. He's not the same character issue guy that Le'Veon Bell was, where he's held out multiple times. He's been suspended and missed times for drugs during his career multiple times. So I understand why the Steelers don't want to commit all this money to some guy who's caused them so much problems, even though he's as good as he is. So it looks like he's going to come back, unless some team blows their socks off. He's going to come back as a Steeler and get franchise tagged again, I'm pretty sure. So we'll see how that works out. We'll see how that works in the locker room, because the Steelers players all felt very betrayed. They came out in the media and spoke out against Bell, which, whether you think that's justified or not, we'll see. But I disagree with how they were handling it, considering how important Bell is. And we don't need players turning on themselves for trying to do the best for themselves. The players should be this unified front. They should want Le'Veon Bell to get $17 million. They should want every player to get $17 million. Someone with his talent level should be getting paid his worth. And the fact this team is right behind that, I think, speaks a lot to their character and even the Le'Veon's character in the locker room. But that could be potentially read as reading too far into it. So take that with a grain of salt. And let's bring it all the way back around to college football. Very pleased with my Mountaineers last week. They had their first real test against the ranked Texas Tech team, a team who also had a vaunted offense. Their West Virginia defense on the road showed up. Will Grier went out and did his thing, his Heisman-level thing, and the West Virginia blew out the Red Raiders, got themselves within the top 10. I think they're number 9 right now, so I'm very excited about that. They are slowly working their way into the top. Right now, there is 5 teams who I think are college football level, so working them. It might just be too crowded this year with great teams that they could be like a TCU from all those years ago, or a Baylor that just gets screwed because it's only 4 teams. But I'm liking my odds right now based on how their offense is clicking. So that was great. But the big game of last week was Ohio State, Penn State. And we got to talk about it. I know James Franklin doesn't like when people bring it up. I only seen the video of the fan yelling at him when he's running off the field. But James Franklin doesn't like when people bring it up. But 4th and 5, you got to throw the ball, coach. It was a bad call. It was a bad call. We love James Franklin to death here, but it was a bad call. But That was a game where Penn State was able to pull that off. You gotta think they're a college football playoff team just based on that. But I don't understand why Franklin. People forget there were 3 timeouts. Penn State called a timeout, came out with the play. Ohio State saw their formation, called a timeout. Ohio State came back out, and Penn State called another timeout to reset up the play. And they ended up going with a dive to the right side of the running back, taking the ball out of the quarterback McSorley's hands, who had basically been the best player on the field that night. He had been great throwing the ball, and even better, he had been great with his legs, extending plays, getting the yards. So I don't see what the decision-making process was to not let McSorley get back in the shotgun, run a play that you think could get you the 5 necessary yards to keep this game going. Because even if that play doesn't work, you have a player talented enough to where if he sees no openings, he can take off with his legs and make something happen and potentially get 5 yards, keep the game going. But with this play to run the ball basically off the right guard, you had no safety gap. So once the Ohio State defensive lineman jumped the hole and got in, they lost yards on a play that needed 5 yards. It was just terrible play calling. And as Shane Franklin went on to say, it's why Penn State has always been one of the teams looking from the outside in when it comes to the playoffs, because they just lose to all the good Big Ten teams every year. They struggle against Ohio State. They struggle against Michigan State. They struggle against Michigan. It's just something that happens to them every year. And for a team that brings in so much talent, they had Saquon Barkley. McSorley's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They just don't win enough. They had to take the next step, and Franklin went into this in his postgame. They need to take the next step to get to the elite program level, because they're not right now. They need, I don't know what they need, because they have the talent. They have James Franklin, who I like as a coach, but they just need to take the step, and I think it comes from, there's just, as James Franklin alluded to, there's small things that as a team they just need to cut out. The bad decision making by the coaching, they need to cut that out. You need to be ready for a 4th and 5 in these big games. You can't freeze and call a terrible play. You can't let that happen. Penn State should have been in that game. They should have gotten that 4th and 5. They just let McSorley make the play. They have to trust their players. Going on the other opposite end, big win for Ohio State. I don't see anyone in the Big Ten challenging them for the Big Ten at this point. They're just too talented. Urban Meyer's back as a head coach. Urban Meyer's back as their head coach. And I know, I forget the status of Nick Bosa, but I know he was hurt. But even without him, Dwayne Haskins has been amazing. He's another Heisman finalist. J.K. Dobbins, great running back. Paris Campbell, one of the best wide receivers in the country. Offensively, they're dynamic. Defensively, they're a little shaky to be considered, but I think their offense, I think they're much more talented on defense than maybe someone like West Virginia. Another team I think is a college football playoff level team. I think they're more talented. I think right now it's just they're younger-ish, and they're not really in their scheme yet. But people love to talk about how Alabama runs the SEC. They get free pass. I think we have to start talking about Ohio State in that same stratosphere, because when is there ever a time when there's always good Big Ten teams? There's always good SEC teams. But every year in and year out, Ohio State's the team that comes out of the Big Ten. Penn State never comes out of the Big Ten. Michigan winning a big game, what's this, 30 years ago? You have Michigan State. Yeah, right, Michigan State's going to make the college football playoffs. That's a joke. And then Wisconsin, which basically plays a baby schedule for half the year and comes in the Big Ten game and is basically a warm-up, and Ohio State just beats them to a pulp every year in the Big Ten game. So Ohio State's so much better than everyone. I think it's time that Ohio State has to be mentioned as the Alabama of the North. They run the Big Ten. No one comes close to competing with Ohio State. Penn State was a play away, but every team's a play away because Ohio State just has that elite quality to them. They're just big-time players. They make big-time plays. Ohio State is the Alabama of the North. And I think you can just lock that in. They're locked in as a college football playoff team. I don't think there's no way Michigan beats them. There's no way Michigan State beats them. There's no way they lose the Big Ten championship game. They're going to win out. They're just that talented. If they lose, it's a real shame because they have the talent where they shouldn't lose the rest of the season. Potentially them versus a team like Georgia in the college football playoffs. that would be that would be an insane football game. That's something I want to see. Because those are two of the top teams in the country. I want Georgia. I want Ohio State. I want a matchup in the college football playoffs. I'm saying it right now. That's a matchup I want. They're coming in to the last minute of the show, last couple minutes.
Patriots are basically a lock. Edelman's back. That's the most interesting part of this game is Julian Edelman's back.
I guess we'll just talk about the game tonight with like the last minute. You have the Patriots versus the Colts. Some people are talking up the Colts. Andrew Luck's back. T.Y. Hilton's hurt, so don't read into any of this. It's at Foxborough. Patriots are basically a lock. Edelman's back. That's the most interesting part of this game is Julian Edelman's back. I want to see how he factors into the passing game because he's going to come back. He's going to be Tom Brady's favorite target, him and Gronk, and I want to see where Josh Gordon fits into this wide receiver core now that he's not the de facto number one. Because last week, he was. Chris Hogan's not number one receiver. If anyone tells me he was, I don't care how many looks he gets. He's not good at wide receiver. He's a freaking lacrosse player. I don't care about Chris Hogan. I want to see how good Josh Gordon is when he has some of the pressure taken off him with Edelman. I want to see if the Patriots are willing to go to him instead of Edelman, instead of Gronk, go to him because he's just so talented. I want to see him heavily utilized. I know he's questionable coming this game, but the Patriots are kind of notorious with their sneaky injury reports and stuff like that. I think he's fine. He was fine last week. He had a couple receptions, 32 yards. I think this could be a breakout week because the Colts defense is just not good. It's down a little bit better. It was terrible last year. It's down a little bit better, but it's not good. And I can see Tom Brady right now, after being disrespected for two weeks, came out, killed the Dolphins, and on a short week, I think they could come out and they could decimate the Colts at home. And that will bring us to the end of our show. I hope all of you enjoyed. Sorry, it was just me. Will had something for one of his classes. He should be back next week, and we'll be talking about the first round of the MLB playoffs and maybe the Eagles, depending on how that game goes. So, yeah. Thanks again for listening. This has been Sam Britt on Radio 1851. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, everyone.